It's an odd coincidence for sure. Sharon Levitt. Yes. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh. Okay. That's okay. I told you who it was. Oh, thank you.
Do you know my son?
Of course I do. I was in here. He put this in me. Unfortunately,
Yeah. Honestly,
so, but my, oh, look, I know all this stuff. I mean, I remember when I got that. And I'm sure Terry put everything on his email.
yes, she did.
Yes.
And Sharon.
Hi.
Yeah.
How are you?
Morgan's there you go. I live some oddity things, but I know all about you. From the time you were born up to today. Really. So we were just reading that Ralph's family holiday. Before he said he wanted to Lydia signed on for it. Well, she's getting married and she's going to take so much time off from her job. Is this your lawyer friend? What is it?
But we met perfectly. We met what? We met, I worked at Ireland.
So the others you don't turn on the microphone. that? I don't know where that is.
Test, test.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Working. Find the check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to begin the service now for Harriet Halpern. Officiating today are Rabbi Brent Gutmann and Cantor Susan Lewis-Friedman.
Someone had a little bit too much fun at Purim last night, so there's some clutter up here. Please forgive me as we get it situated. Kol omer kara, v'amar ma'ekra. Kol basar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh. Yavesh chatzir navel tzitz ki ruach Adonai navsha bo. Achen, chatzir ha'am yavesh chatzir navel tzitz. Udvar Eloheinu yikum le'olam. A voice says, cry out. And I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, when a wind of the eternal blows upon it. Surely, the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall endure forever. Friends, we are here on this festive day of Purim that too has been darkened by the loss of a strong, independent, caring woman, a mother, grandmother, a great-grandmother, aunt, friend, Harriet Halpern. And our friends grieve as their festivity is darkened on this day. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Harriet's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and of her mind that brought joy and happiness and now is a precious remembrance. For all these and more we give our thanks to God. In times of grief, we fall back on our foundations, on words found in books, books which Harriet loved, books which have inspired our people in every generation, in every moment, every day, every week, every century. And we look to those books, which remind us of God's nearness in times of sorrow, just as in times of celebration, in times of life, as in times of death. Psalm 15. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and, come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. I think for many of us, when we think of Harriet, what comes to mind is her aptitude in the kitchen, her aptitude for baking, her aptitude for creating a home that was supportive, that was filled with nurturing and wisdom, of cultivating friendships and relationships that helped to build community, that helped to cross boundaries, that helped to bring strength. And so I'd like to share with us another scripture that comes from the book of Proverbs, words written perhaps by King Solomon about his wife. This is Eshet Chayil. A woman of valor who can find. She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does good for him, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. moments of joy as well as moments of challenge. A psalm well known in these settings, which can be found actually in the manila sheets that have been handed out. Words of Psalm 23, which speak of both the heights of life and the valleys of shadow and assert God's presence with us. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Who maketh me to lie down in green pastures, who leadeth me beside the still waters, who restoreth my soul, who leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for thy name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Eternal forever.
נפשי שואב ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי דשנת Shemen Roshi, Kosi Revaya, Revaya, Ach Tov Chesed Yirdefuni Kol Yemei Chayai V'shavti bebeit Adonai
We gather here in this magnificent sanctuary at Templebethzion, which was so beloved by both Harriet and Ralph. We're aware that there are many joining us, as Harriet had a very wide circle online, and so we want to welcome all those who are zooming in to this service, especially Harriet's grandchildren, most of whom are enjoying some sunshine together in Mexico, as the family had an annual tradition of going each March to be together, to enjoy some relaxation, some leisure together, to just be human beings together. And they hadn't had the opportunity to take this trip since before the pandemic. This is their first occasion. And so as we knew that this moment may very well occur while they were away, we also knew that it would be according to Harriet's wishes that they maintain their plans, that they were there to continue this tradition because family was so important in the way that it connected them. And so in this situation as such, Sophia, who just spoke at Ralph's funeral back in December so beautifully, Sophia, who's one of Harriet's grandchildren, has prepared some remarks that she's sent in, and we'll ask for Julie to come and share them for her. So for the Shiva, certainly they are thinking, I apologize for that. Okay, well, you know, we've done this, and it's been really a privilege for me to spend time with you along with the Cantor, with your family, and just to see how those values are passed on the door from generation to generation. And so, Sophia, we eagerly await the moment when you have time to prepare. Right now, you are doing more important things, as we just mentioned. And so we'll welcome another who we have a privilege to hear, Stephen Halpern, the son of Harriet, a son of Harriet.
Well, so many public speakers say they're going to keep it brief. But this is it, and this is a eulogy. I want to talk about her, who she was, her many achievements, and the things she was proudest of. This is not the time to be brief. This is a long, loving memorial goodbye, and I want to speak at length. All right, that said, what I want and what I'm going to do are two different things. I will, in fact, keep it brief. So bear with me as I do the best I can. Words inevitably will fall short. I was thinking about my mother, who was born she was born in the Bronx, a child of immigrants. I was trying to picture what the Bronx were like in the 1930s. Apparently it was 49% Jews, many of whom were recent immigrants. They were making new lives for themselves. 94 years later, she passed away peacefully, comfortably, in her own home in Buffalo, leaving a legacy of a 64-year marriage to her late husband, Ralph, 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. And I'm not here to talk about her amazing husband or her remarkable, accomplished children or grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I want to talk about her. Her highest values were education, family, and community. She had a keen sense of propriety and high standards in her personal life as well as her work life. She set a high bar for herself and led by example. Her highest value really was education. I can remember when I was a small boy, maybe 4 years old, with a burst, and I thought I was bursting with artistic talent. I scribbled in a book. When she saw what I was doing, she took the book and she said without scolding, never write in books. Books are to be cherished. Don't deface a book, and never throw out a book. education really was our highest value. And that was excellent guidance that carried me through life. And a few years ago, my partner, Kate, who couldn't be here today, said, I was not allowed to get any more books. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you ran out of bookshelves years ago. So that brings me to another thing that my mother cherished, library. Turns out you can get books for, you can get, libraries. They let you borrow books for free, and you don't have to clutter up your house with them. So Harriet had a degree from Oswego Teachers College, and for years she taught elementary school, and then later in life she taught adult literacy, cooking classes, and more. But beyond teaching, she remained a student, a lifelong learner, taking classes at local colleges and universities throughout her life. She enjoyed the arts. She was an avid reader of literature, a lover of classic movies, the theater, the Buffalo Philharmonic, and the Albright Knox Art Gallery. She had her own creative outlets too, particularly as an accomplished chef whose culinary artistry was unrivaled. And she had a particular fondness for chocolate. When I was small, she started a chocolate business. I can remember the day the doorbell rang, and when I answered it, there was a delivery man with a large, heavy crate on a dollar. Harriet signed for the package, and I said, Mom, what's that? She said, it's the chocolate. It was the first tip of a 10-kilo ingot of Dutch chocolate. She used it to make chocolate animals, particularly small buffaloes, by carefully melting it down and pouring it into molds and packaging them in a nice box with a ribbon and selling them around. The business was a fine idea, except for one thing. He ate too much chocolate. It never made it into those animal molds. And now I can admit, I helped eat whatever profit there might have been. And it was delicious. At the end of her life, sadly, she had somewhat lost her taste for food. It was hard to get her to eat. She wasn't even aware of what she was always eating. On one of the last days she did have an appetite, she had a meal, and followed by a small bit of dessert. And she was silent for a few minutes. She looked around and said, what was that I ate? The last thing I ate a few minutes ago. It was a small bit. Smiled, said, it was good. I want to emphasize something else about Harriet and her values. She was industrious. She worked hard. The chocolate business evolved into Just Desserts, where she made high-end desserts for local restaurants, among other things. She became a food stylist, preparing food for local grocery stores' TV commercials and for print advertising. She didn't rest. She was more than a wife, a mom, a homemaker, a businesswoman. She was a force in her own right. My father, a lawyer, could win any argument in court, but at home, Harriet could put him in his place with just one look. She was a liberal humanist, a feminist who believed in women's rights and equal rights in general. She enjoyed traveling more than she let on sometimes. How many times did I hear her say, as the dutiful wife, Ralph was going somewhere and she was obligated to go. But a few days ago, I was going through a lifetime of her travel photos, and there she is, smiling, having a great time in so many far-flung corners of the earth. Underneath her tough exterior, she was a soft at heart. She was most proud of her family, particularly happy that her children and grandchildren grew up to be happy, well-adjusted individuals, doing great things and finding their paths in the world. She never pushed her kids to come home from school with all A's. Instead, she would ask, did you do your best? whole life, how lucky we all have been connected. Thank you all.
Steve, thank you for opening up with those remarks for us, moving all of us, helping all of us to understand your mother, who she was and what she stood for and what animated and drove her, those values of family, cooking, books, and community. Harriet was a woman of intelligence, a woman of strength, a woman of unwavering independence, like the spirit of Queen Esther, whom we celebrate today most of all this festival of Purim. Esther was a woman who transcended her traditional Jewish upbringing to impact the greater society for the benefit of all. From the Megillah, we learn that in ancient Persia, women were sadly objectified, as we know until modern times has been the case in much of the world. They were paraded as trophies, and this was true even of queens, as at the beginning of the story, Vashti, the queen who precedes Esther, refuses to play this role and is quickly discarded. But Esther learned how to play the game. She was able to win the contest, to become the new queen, but she was not just a queen. She was a thinker, a strategist, a woman who never forgot who she was, but harnessed her spirit gracefully, tactfully, and strategically to save our people from death. Esther was independent, yet deeply devoted, strong and genuine, and always true to herself. So too was Harriet. As you shared, Steve, born to immigrant parents along with her sister Frances, she carried with her the resilience of those who came before her, the grit to carve out a life of dignity, and the determination to pursue knowledge as a means of both survival and joy. She noted stories of how her mother escaped Eastern Europe as much of her family was persecuted. Her grandmother, a story among them notable, who died falling between tracks, some saying that she was pushed by a Cossack soldier. Her father, Joseph, also an Eastern European refugee, an actual stowaway, I'm told, who came to the United States in search of a fresh start. Both of Harriet's parents worked hard for industrial laundry services. Steve, you noted how it was a significant achievement when they were able to move to the Bronx. They sold their small apartment in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and they'd made it in society, so to say. When the Great Depression came, it was Joseph's, her father's personality that triumphed, his jolliness, his compassion, and his drive to care for others that made an impression for sure on Harriet, as his family took in relatives to help them in any way they could. Still, from a young age, Like Esther, Harriet wished to be something more. She took an interest in fine clothing and social life. She wished to shed the world of Yiddish in preference for fine food, fine baking. She pursued this, and it was at this stage that she met your father, Ralph. Similar to the royal beauty contest held in the Purim story, Ralph, who was drafted into the military during World War II, he tells in his own words, we have it recorded, that he'd been given a list of eligible single Jewish women in New York by a friend. And from this list, he says, he picked the most beautiful one. She was your mother. When Harriet moved to Buffalo to become part of the Halpern family, it constituted a different level of accomplishment. She embraced this new life as a Buffalonian, entering the circles of the sophisticated German Jewry while remaining true to herself. Harriet joined a weekly Bible study and book club through friends she made in the temple, all of whom she maintained as friends for some 70 years. And among this group, which included the wife of the rabbi, it's attested by the son of one of the members that Harriet stood out as the most measured, calm, and rational as they debated the issues of the day. The Halperns, as a family, generally were proud members of the Republican political party, which I carefully note held values very different from today's GOP. When they learned that Harriet had registered as a Democrat, they tried pressuring her to change her affiliation, but she would not back down. As you shared, Steve. Like Esther, she didn't shy away from declaring who she was. She was a proud New Deal Democrat because she understood how important those opportunities were, which were afforded to immigrants during the New Deal era, to her own family among them. And as she gravitated towards the domestic arts, cooking and baking, chocolate, as we heard, this too became clear. Rick, you showed me an article published in the Buffalo Herald Tribune of your mother baking traditional Lekvar prune hamantaschens, complete with the recipe and a picture, a photo of her with you and your brother agog as she pulled out a fresh batch from the oven. But drawing strength from who she was did not end there. Julie, you shared the remarkable story that during the COVID pandemic, when your mother became very ill, you came into town, rushed here to take her to the hospital. And at that time, you recognized she was already suffering from some of the dementia that would become more pronounced later. That she started there in the waiting room, inexplicably asking about a friend of yours from middle school. The lone African-American girl in your class, Kim Williams, saying, I've been thinking about her. I've been thinking about her all these years. What's happened to her? Do you know what's happened to her? And you shared that with the wonders of Facebook, you learned that she moved to California and she wanted to talk to her right there and then. So you sent a message and Kim responded. And sure enough, they connected on the phone right there at the hospital, where you learned that your mother, while you had been in school, had invited her mother over to your house to exchange cooking recipes for the chance to bond. She'd share her Jewish recipes, and Mrs. Williams would share her recipes from the African American tradition, and together they developed a deep cross-racial friendship, an act defying what was considered inclusive, progressive, that spirit that we have so much at this time. Your mother surpassed it in the way she lived out these values during her own. For Harriet, Engaging with and understanding the world around her was not just a hobby, it was a way of life. You mentioned, Steve, that she received a degree from Oswego State College in teaching before it was commonplace for women to become educated. And for much of her life, she taught. But her teaching also went beyond professionalism. She volunteered in schools to teach children with learning disabilities as well as immigrants for whom English was their second language. And she didn't just teach. She read. She transmitted her love of books to you. She was a huge supporter, as you shared, of the North Park Library, where multiple times a week she'd take you to explore and would disappear into the cookbook aisle. No surprise. And it was a great day when she would take you with your siblings to the Boulevard Mall the week before heading off to summer camp in White Pines, where she would allow you to buy as many paperbacks as you liked, as long as they weren't comic books. These became treasures for you, some of which, such as Zaleph the Goat or a copy of the original printing of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, they were endorsed with your mother's exceptional, her beautiful handwriting, and you've passed them on to become cherished possessions for both your kids and grandkids. Harriet engrossed herself in books. Her home, just as yours have become, is right now still filled with them. They, for her, denoted her unspoken bond with fellow seekers of knowledge. But education was more than that for both your parents. Education was a pathway out of hardship. It was a way to elevate ourselves. Both of your parents told you repeatedly that an investment in education was never wasted. For them, it was truly the highest value, especially when imparted on one's children. And Harriet encouraged you to explore. In fact, Rick, you shared when you went through your religious phase, she did not protest. She gave you the chance to try out the school at Ava Zachem, at Colvin, and Tacoma. Your parents, they were not pet people. But when you wanted a pet, she took you to the library and turned your desire into a research project where you concluded the best breed for your family was a beautiful Keeshond. Except that your parents didn't like that your dog shed and that she was a rambunctious puppy, and your mom would throw up her hands when she ran into the house and someone got in, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But they insisted. They insisted you care for this dog. They insisted this is a show dog. You have to show this dog. And so they drove you to Syracuse. Needless to say, the dog didn't behave herself, didn't win the prize. And before the year was out, they were able to find a new home for your beautiful Keeshond with Toby Laping, where she lived for many years. While your parents were rather formal, as parents at least, principled, never contradicting each other in front of you, never arguing in front of you, at times seeming buttoned up, stern, they also supported you unconditionally. Where other parents might admonish their children for bringing home imperfect grades, you've shared, Steve, that all they wanted was for you to do your best, which I know is, by our understanding today, by scholarship on parenting, positive psychology, the best and healthiest way that a parent can offer encouragement. For all of her intellect and independence, Harriet was most committed to her family. She and Ralph were excellent parents in raising and instilling in all of you the keys to success. but if they were excellent parents, they were exceptional grandparents. When you grew and began to chart your own paths, when you married and the family expanded, they welcomed your spouses lovingly, openly embracing them. And when it came time that you would have your own children, Harriet dropped everything to be there for you. Julie, you shared how she flew out to Boston to support you and Dean, and when you gave birth, and not even the Atlantic Ocean could separate her from you, Beth and Rick, when you lived in England, when you had your own growing family there. And we know how much her grandchildren wish to be here right now, and they are here. We know they're here, together with us as they continue for a new generation that important value of connection, of family. We all know that your grandmother, Harriet, would want you to be right where you are. That she would want you to have taken this opportunity to travel, to be with each other for her sake, to know that these connections continue through the generations. There will be more opportunities to be together, because death is really not an end, but a different stage of life. This chance to travel is so important that you're taking. It opens one's eyes to the world. As we heard, Harriet, much as she didn't let it on, she loved to travel. And her and Ralph, they went together to exotic places like Japan, unusual places for Americans to travel, such as Russia. They took advantage of opportunities to travel together on Ralph's business trips. Okay, she says she was obligated, but I think she wanted to go. But with family, well, when it came to travel, Harriet always insisted on warm places because she was there for others. She thought that they would enjoy them more, even if she was one who fled from the sun and the beach with her red hair and pale skin. Like Esther, Harriet was undividedly committed to who she was, to her values, but most of all, to her family. Harriet will be missed most by those who knew her and loved her best. Foremost among them, you, her family, her children, her sister, her great-grandchildren, and her grandchildren. And I pray may her memory grow as a source of strength and sustenance, of health and peace for you, for this community to whom she meant so much, to all Israel and to all our world. We rise as we continue with the words of the memorial prayer. El Malay Rachamim.
El Malay Rachamim shochen b'amromim hametzen mechnucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina im kedoshim u'torim kezohar harakia mazirim et nishmat sorayet bat Yosef udvora shehalcha le'olama Bal harachamim yastirei habeseder kenafav me'olamim bitzrur hachayim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata על משכבה ונאמר אמן.
Eternal, full of mercy, who dwells on high, find fitting rest upon the wings of your divine presence in the heights of the holy and pure, who shine like the glow of the firmament, for the soul of Harriet Halpern, known among our people as Sora, a minister Yeta of the home and light, Bat Yosef Vedvorah, the daughter of Joseph and Deborah, who has gone to her eternal world. For we pray in memory of her soul, may her resting place be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the Sovereign of mercy shelter her in the presence of God's wings forever, and may God bind her soul in the bond of life. The eternal is her inheritance, and may she rest peacefully upon her resting place. And let us say, Amen. Amen.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're now going to go in procession to Forest Lawn Cemetery. If you are going in procession with us, please use your bright lights and your four-way flashers. Bring your programs as well. They have the mourner's Kaddish in them. If we could have just the pallbearers come forward right now, and everyone else, please remain standing. Also, the Shiva information is on the front of the programs.
Yes. Yes. 3 years. Yeah. Right. Show Jacobson. Show and Lewis. Yeah. It is a small world. We know everyone now. Yeah. Well, right. Pros and cons, I guess, at different times, you know. Yeah. Yeah. It would have been interesting experience. Yeah, you're, yeah. It does seem like so many get accomplished, right? People came from your era. But I guess everybody went there. I mean, everyone went to that neighborhood and everyone went to that school back then, right? Now we're all spread out. But yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're right. Yeah, sadly. No problem. Peter, nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye. What are you guys doing? Okay.
we can turn the light off now, or
You can, yeah. We'll be back though for the evening service, so.
and
What's that? We still never
the
figured out how to
candles,
get.
they should be like left or right?
What?
The candles,
So which one?
yes, the
The
small one.
candles.
Yes. Should
They
be
need to
like
be over there.
this
Yeah.
one.
Right there, yeah. Isn't that in the manual? It's in the manual, right? What we got? There's the, read it, just read it. It's right there. I translated it for you so you would know. It's right there. Right next to the bread. Okay? And the wine. Okay. Yeah, all right, thank you.
Test.